The coup unfolded with minimal bloodshed, but maximum symbolism. Here was a man half the age of many generals, in fatigues and a red beret, speaking calmly but firmly of reclaiming national pride and defeating terrorism without compromise. Traoré accused Damiba of straying from the goals of the revolution, of favoring diplomacy over action, and of failing to restore territorial sovereignty. He pledged a new era, one of security, discipline, and patriotism. Public reactions were mixed at first, but many, especially among the youth, rallied behind him. In the streets of Ouagadougou, supporters held up posters of Thomas Sankara alongside images of the new leader, chanting slogans of revolution and hope. Footage shows civilians greeting soldiers, holding placards reading "Vive le Capitaine." To some, it was a reckless gamble. To others, a necessary intervention. But one thing was certain. Ibrahim Traoré had become the face of a new chapter in Burkina Faso's modern struggle. He vowed to restructure the army, empower local defense groups, and refuse foreign domination, especially criticizing the overreach of France and calling for Pan-African unity in fighting terrorism. The September coup was not just a power shift, it was a message. The old ways had failed, and the youth were taking matters into their own hands. In an age where power often drapes itself in luxury, Captain Ibrahim Traoré stands out, not for what he owns, but for what he refuses. Since taking office, Traoré has cultivated an image that sharply contrasts with the typical African head of state. He does not live in a presidential palace, shuns motorcades, and refuses to hang his portrait in government offices. He often appears in the same military fatigues he wore during the coup, walking among civilians and eating with his troops. His humility resonates deeply with Burkina Faso's youthful majority, who see in him not just a leader, but a reflection of themselves, frustrated, determined, and unafraid. He does not speak like a politician. He speaks like a soldier with conviction. He frequently references Thomas Sankara, quoting his speeches and echoing his calls for anti-imperialism, self-sufficiency, and African unity. Traoré has even taken steps to diversify international partnerships, reaching out to Russia, Turkey, and other non-Western allies, signaling a break from the country's traditional ties with France. On social media, he is something of a phenomenon. Youth groups across West Africa have adopted him as a symbol of Pan-African resistance. Memes, hashtags, and video tributes flood platforms like Facebook and TikTok. Many portray him as the new Sankara, or part of a rising generation of anti-colonial African leaders. But his leadership is not without controversy. Journalists have raised concerns over press freedom, citing the suspension of media outlets deemed critical of the regime. Human rights groups have also reported instances of excessive force by security forces and civilian militias under his command. Still, Traoré's support base remains robust, particularly among students, the rural poor, and volunteer fighters. His promise to put the people first, even at personal risk, has earned him admiration in a region hungry for authenticity. Whether hero or opportunist, soldier or statesman, Ibrahim Traoré is redefining what it means to lead in the 21st century African context. Burkina Faso's shift under Ibrahim Traoré is not only internal, it is geopolitical. The country is reorienting itself on the world stage, and doing so with defiance. Since Traoré's rise to power, relations with France, Burkina Faso's former colonial ruler, have deteriorated sharply. Traoré accused the French military of failing to effectively support the fight against terrorism, while also undermining national sovereignty. Within months of the September 22 coup, the French military was ordered to leave the country, and French ambassadors recalled. Into that vacuum stepped Russia, a nation eager to expand its influence in Africa. Traoré has welcomed what he calls mutually respectful partnerships, seeking military and logistical support from Moscow. Russian private military contractors, particularly the Wagner Group, now operating under the rebranded name Africa Corps, are believed to have established a presence in Burkina Faso, though official confirmation remains vague. This eastward pivot aligns Traoré with a broader regional bloc. Alongside Mali and Niger, both now also led by military governments hostile to French and Western influence, Burkina Faso has formed what some call a Sahel alliance. The three countries have proposed a new West African confederation, aiming to coordinate defense, development, and political strategy. They have also collectively turned their backs on ECOWAS, the West African Regional Bloc. ECOWAS's threats of sanctions and military intervention have been met with open rejection, as Traoré and his allies accuse the bloc of serving foreign interests rather than African people. But these bold moves come with risk. Burkina Faso is still fighting a brutal insurgency and faces crippling humanitarian and development needs. Traoré must navigate this realignment without alienating critical aid partners or losing control of the national narrative. In the eyes of his supporters, Traoré is reclaiming African dignity. In the eyes of his critics, he is playing with fire, courting new patrons while the nation still burns. For all the slogans and symbolism, the reality on the ground remains unforgiving. Despite promises of rapid progress, the jihadist insurgency continues to devastate large parts of Burkina Faso. Rural provinces remain war zones. Terrorist attacks occur weekly, often targeting civilians, schools, and infrastructure. While some operations have succeeded in pushing militants back, gains are fragile and easily reversed. Meanwhile, the economy suffers. With much of the countryside inaccessible, agriculture, the backbone of Burkina Faso's economy, has been severely disrupted. Inflation has soared, basic goods are scarce, and more than 2 million people are displaced, relying on humanitarian aid. Governance is another pressing concern. Critics argue that Traoré's military rule lacks transparency and institutional checks. Parliament remains suspended. Political parties have been sidelined. The press faces increasing restrictions, with several independent outlets shut down and foreign journalists denied access. Human rights organizations have raised alarms over reports of extrajudicial killings, especially by civilian militias empowered under Traoré's watch. These groups, known as Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland (VDP), play a critical role in local defense, but have also been accused of abuses against civilians, particularly in ethnically tense regions. And looming over it all is a lack of clarity about the future. There is no official roadmap for a return to civilian rule. Traoré has insisted that security must come before elections. But this open-ended timeline fuels concern, both domestically and abroad, that democracy may be indefinitely postponed. Even heroes face hard questions. For Traoré, the question is this: can he deliver more than symbolism? Can he truly turn revolution into lasting reform? Beyond policy, beyond geopolitics, there is something more powerful shaping Ibrahim Traoré's story. Symbolism. A 34-year-old captain has become a symbol of hope for millions of frustrated African youth. In Burkina Faso, and increasingly across Francophone Africa, Traoré is hailed as a Sankara 2.0, the spiritual successor to a revolutionary who died before his dreams could be realized. Songs are written about him. Murals paint his face alongside Pan-African heroes. On social media, hashtags like #Traoré2025 and #PatAfrica for Africans trend regularly. In a region battered by corruption, coups, and outside interference, Traoré embodies an alternative vision, one where African youth take charge, reject foreign dependency, and fight for sovereignty with pride. His rhetoric echoes this identity. He speaks of reclaiming our destiny, of fighting imperialism with our own hands, and of building unity from the Sahel to the Congo. It's a message that resonates, deeply and emotionally, with a generation that sees little hope in the political status quo. But the question remains, will this revolution of spirit lead to real change? Or will it too fade into the long shadow of unrealized dreams? Only time will tell whether Ibrahim Traoré becomes a transformative figure, or another chapter in a continent's endless cycle of hope and hardship. Ibrahim Traoré remains a complex figure, both a revolutionary hero to many and a controversial strongman to others. His rapid rise from a modest soldier to the world's youngest head of state symbolizes the deep yearning of a nation and a continent for change. Burkina Faso stands at a crossroads. The security crisis persists, economic hardships weigh heavily on its people, and political freedoms are contested. Yet, Traoré's youth, charisma, and bold vision have inspired hope among millions who long for a future free from violence, foreign domination, and corruption. The path ahead is anything but certain. Can this young captain fulfill his promises and bring stability and dignity back to Burkina Faso? Or will he become another figure caught in the cycle of coups and revolutions that have defined so much of Africa's modern history? As the world watches, Traoré's story is more than a national saga. It is a reflection of Africa's enduring struggle for self-determination. Whether he becomes a beacon of a new African era or a fleeting chapter in a long history of upheaval remains to be seen. The road ahead is long, but for Burkina Faso, it is a journey of profound hope and immense challenge.